My name is Jesse Mendelson. I'm a Senior Director in the Center of Excellence for Model N. I have been with Model N for 10 and a half years, and I've been focused for the lion's share of that time on regulatory compliance for our customers. I'm here with John Shakow from King & Spalding out of Washington, D.C. He is a specialist in government pricing and price reporting, and he's going to share some information with us about using your counsel and also about the final AMP rule. Now that the final rule came out, John, I'm curious, what were you really glad was actually not included?
Well, I certainly think they could have been a lot more difficult about 5i, right? 70-30 is a lot better than 90-10. They could have required us to include in best price sales to 340B covered entities that were outside the program in some way. They could have done a whole host of things to make implementation of the final rule a living nightmare for us. So yes, they made us read 657 pages worth of final rule, but I think a lot of it in there was good for us to hear.
For clients that you have that have non-5i products that are also not generally dispensed at retail community pharmacies, what advice are you giving them for the right way of calculating AMP?
Well, with regard to 5i, in making that 70-30 determination, first of all, you're not bound by the presumed inclusion rules that you would normally follow. Manufacturers can make determinations on a product-by-product basis as to what the correct and useful sources of data are, such that they can come up with an accurate and, frankly, repeatable methodology for determining 70-30. It can be different product by product. It can vary based on the visibility that a customer has or that a manufacturer has into its downstream sales. So, for instance, you may make a number of wholesaler sales, but you know that next to none of them are sold to RCPs based on the nature of your product. And if you don't get chargeback data that demonstrates that, I'm encouraging my clients to look at other sources of information, whether it's rebate data or 867 data or any other kind of data that would reasonably and demonstrably indicate that you have fewer than 30% of your sales to RCPs.
For several years, John, manufacturers have been allowed to include the low-price transfer sales to AG manufacturers in their AMP calculations. Can you speak to what's changed, if anything, about that in the final rule?
With regard to those drugs that are not eye products, that is, they're not infused, instilled, implanted, injected, any other eye, but that we know have no RCP sales. I call these drugs crack drugs because they fall between the definitions of the two methodologies. It's neither a standard AMP methodology nor is it a 5i AMP methodology. CMS has taken the position that due to presumed inclusion and with reasonable assumptions, you're going to come up with some RCP sales on which to base your AMP. But that's simply not true in many instances. And in that case, I would urge manufacturers to reach out to CMS and explain the problems they're having with calculating an AMP. And in the interim, report the most recently calculable positive AMP and 0 units. You run into a problem with those drugs that are about to launch that will not have a positive AMP they can carry forward. And for them, I would say beat a quick retreat to CMS to explain to them that the methodology that they articulated in the final rule is insufficient.